and your motivational speaker, trainer, and head coach at Live, Love, Give. And today's message is an interesting one, something that I've just come across, sort of giving language to sort of a new way of thinking about how we think about the world. And so I wanted to introduce it to you guys because it just kind of hit home for me and I found it valuable. So I wanted to introduce you guys to, the concept of breaking free of the drama triangle, which I'm going to touch into and I'm going to help explain, and ultimately entering what we call the empowerment dynamic and shifting those sort of roles that we oversimplify the world with. So nice to have you, Jamie and Dave and Belinda. Awesome to have you guys join me. And Don, awesome. I'm great. I hope you're just as great. And I love having you guys here with me. So ultimately, where this message comes from is that, we as a society, or we as individuals, have a tendency to sort of oversimplify the world and kind of oversimplify people and the dynamics as well. And ultimately, what we do when we're oversimplifying the world is we place everything in three different categories. The first category is the category of the victim. Identifying people as victims, ourselves as victims. And ultimately, that's a really disempowering state to be in yourself, and really disempowering to place other people in that role of the victim, because ultimately a victim, they're out of control. Everything's happening to them. They have no power to change their circumstances. That's the role. And the second category that we tend to oversimplify the world into and the people into is the role of the villain. We like to, when there's a victim, we need to automatically have a villain, somebody who has to be blamed for the circumstance, or it might even be, categorizing a circumstance as a villain, and still, creating that disempowerment between the people and the roles that we've oversimplified them into those different categories. And then lastly, the third category that we tend to oversimplify the world into is the role of the hero. And, it sounds all great to have this hero, but ultimately, a hero needs a victim to save. And it's all about getting into this mentality of trying to save somebody, like they need to be saved, like they're not capable enough or empowered enough to step up and own their situation, own their life, and ultimately, create the destiny that they're trying to create for themselves. So that's just the quick overview. I'm going to dive more into it, but again, I just want to say a quick hi because you guys know how much I appreciate you jumping on live with me, and it excites me. So Chrissy, nice to have you. Donald, lovely to have you back. And Manolo, Victoria, awesome. I love having you here. And Lisa and Stephen, Natalie, Gail. Yes, so good to have you. And Hassan, thank you for joining me. Anatha, I always love having you here. And Manj, thank you so much. That's great that you're back. And Superman, my friend, awesome, awesome, awesome. Natalie, I'm so grateful that this is a perfect timing for you to hear this message. That warms my heart than like nothing else. So, and Shabal, thank you for joining. Okay, so we understand what those three categories are now, that we tend to, as a society, unconsciously kind of categorize and oversimplify what's going on in our world with the people around us into those three categories of the victim, the villain, and the hero. And ultimately, when we do that in that unconscious way, we disempower ourselves and we disempower everybody around us. We get stuck in this kind of fixed mindset, a disempowered mindset, like everything's happening to us rather than for us, and we have no control over it. But ultimately, what my message is to you guys, to give you a little bit of perspective and self-awareness around, what those roles are, what those categories are that we all tend to like throw people into, and ultimately how we can shift out of that to a much more empowered dynamic, and ultimately, empower ourselves to break through. So the way that we do that is, firstly, that awareness piece is always the foundation, to recognize where we're making ourselves or others the victim, the villain, or the hero who's got to save somebody. And ultimately, once we have that awareness, then how we shift into a more empowering dynamic is we make the victim the creator. You know, we take them out of that disempowered state and something's happened to them and they need to be saved. And we ultimately transfer them into the role of the creator of their destiny, you know, owning the lessons, you know, deciding and creating their best quality of life. And that is the empowerment, the empowered shift from victim to creator. Secondly, you know, that villain, you know, the villain, that role becomes the challenger. You know, without those challenges in our lives, you know, we ultimately don't have the opportunity to grow to higher levels of our potential. So that's what the villain becomes. We empower ourselves by, instead of identifying people as villains, we empower ourselves by shifting the power back to ourselves by learning the lesson and welcoming the challenge that we're being presented with, knowing full well that we can learn and we can grow from it. And ultimately, you know, we need challenge in our lives. And, you know, a lot of us get caught in this trap thinking that, you know, our friendships, our relationships, you know, we just want this support and no challenge. But ultimately, that's what keeps us stuck. And at the end of the day, if we just have support all the time and we have no challenge, we live pretty unfulfilled lives because we don't feel like we're growing. We don't feel like we're progressing. You know, it's the old saying that, you know, pressure makes diamonds. It's the same thing. We need the challenges in our lives in order to break through to that next level of our potential. So swapping that role of the villain to the challenger is awesome for empowerment. And then lastly, the role of the hero, you know, the hero who wants to save, but also ultimately, in order to be a hero, in that disempowered state, you have to have a victim. So you keep people kind of stuck in their victim mentality so that you can be the hero who's got to save everybody. And ultimately, the shift, the more empowering shift there is to become a coach. Rather than the hero who has to save, you're the coach who gives the tools, who helps another person to find a more empowering perspective, a new truth, an ability to break through from their empowered state, rather than you trying to save them and keeping them stuck in that victim mentality. So I hope that the way that I'm explaining this to you guys is resonating, it's making sense, it's helping you to think about the world in a new perspective. Where is it that you're making yourself or another person the victim? Where are you saying somebody is a villain rather than seeing the challenge that's being presented that is helping and empowering you or somebody else to break through to a new level of your potential? And where are you just trying to save everybody rather than empower people to come up with their own perspectives and own ways of being to move forward and break through so they don't have to stay victimized? So I want to check back in with you guys again, as always, and just see what's going on. Annette, thank you for joining. Daniel, I'd love to work on TV. Thank you. And Lisa, victim, villain, and what is the third one? Yes, so there's the victim, the villain, and the hero. So they are how we tend to, as a society, oversimplify the world and keep ourselves disempowered. So we need to make the shift from the victim to the creator, the villain to the challenger, and the hero to the coach. So I hope that that is resonating with you guys and that made sense. Thank you, Hassan. I'm so grateful that these messages are resonating with you and bringing some more happiness into your life. I absolutely love that. And Nicole, great. I think it's based on a positive understanding of these three aspects to make next steps. Definitely, you know, so ultimately, in order to break through in any challenge that we have in our lives, whenever we're trying to level up to that next level of our potential, we need to identify what roles we're playing, because there's a lot of stories going on that are keeping us stuck. And ultimately, where I meet a lot of people is in that transitional period when they're kind of confused. You know, they want to break through, but they haven't quite identified what those stories of limitation are that are holding them back, what those roles are that they're playing, and ultimately, you know, looking at whether you think you're playing the victim, whether you're feeling like the villain, or you feel like you're being attacked by a villain, and ultimately if you're trying to save everybody at the expense of their empowerment. So I hope that that's resonating again, and thank you for your comments, Nicole, appreciate it. And Belinda, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Yes, definitely. So I'm a big believer in having, both sides. You need challenge and you need support. If you have too much challenge, you just get overwhelmed, you get stuck. And if you have too much support, you don't have anything to push off, and again, you get stuck. So you got to find that balance and ultimately bring that into your relationships, your connections, your life. Be the challenge and the support to those people in your life and welcome that back from them. So awesome. Thank you for your comments. Belinda, I love having you here as always. And Kristen, thank you for joining. And Daniel, and stars make gold. Yes, true. Jamie, you're always on point. Thank you for, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for your kind compliment there, Jamie. I appreciate that so much. Thanks, Hassan. And yes, Lisa, awesome. And Barbara, nice to have you. And thank you, Daniel, so much. So guys, do you have any questions? Are there any more comments that you guys have? Are you starting to shift out? I'm all about creating a meta perspective in terms of your life, in terms of how you're showing up, in terms of the roles that you can get stuck in. And when you're stuck in these roles, we're in the middle of it, and sometimes it's really hard to break free because we're not seeing it. And sometimes we just need an outside perspective to come into our lives so that we can look at things in a new light, in a new way, and therefore become more empowered. Self-awareness is empowerment. You just have to have the courage to look at yourself. And I know all of you guys who are watching are the type of people who have that courage because you want to grow, you want to progress, and that's awesome. And that's why I love having you guys engage with me here. And Nia, thank you for joining. So guys, like I said, drop me any questions, comments, any feedback that you guys have. Has this been helpful? Has today's message sort of given you a fresh perspective on something? Has it allowed you to sort of step into a bit more of an empowered state, or maybe start questioning some things that have been holding you back? I'd love to hear from you. Jeremy, I always love having you here. Thank you so much for joining me. And Lisa, give us some examples of how we get stuck and how we can change and empower. When you're stuck, it is hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Love having that question. Thank you so much for interacting and engaging with me today, Lisa. I appreciate that. So ultimately, okay, let's start with what I believe is the easiest one to identify. Is not so much when you're in it, but you can always identify somebody else in this. It's really easy. So when somebody is stuck in the role of the victim, it's consistent. I'm a big believer in, you can feel sorry for yourself, but when are you moving through it? We've got to be able to identify, feel through things, not repress and suppress things, but ultimately get to an empowered state by feeling through an emotion, feeling through an experience, and ultimately breaking through. So we can get stuck in that victim mentality when, the world's against you. You're repeating the same problem over and over again. It's that friend who, is constantly got the same problem, and you want to help them, but you've eventually realized that they're just continuing to regurgitate the same problem and they're not doing anything about it. That's what's happening when we're playing the role of the victim. We feel totally disempowered. We're looking for somebody else to change. We're looking for somebody else to save us, to come into our world and save us. We're ultimately just stuck in this, why does everything happen to me? What can I can't do anything. And it's just this totally stuck victim sort of role that we can be playing. Ultimately, how it plays out, it's awesome to see playing out in relationship. It's really easy to see that dynamic, because one of the number one questions I get asked when I'm helping a couple break through in their relationship is, how do I get them to change? That is a victim mentality. That is you expecting something in the external to change so that you can feel okay. And ultimately, it's about shifting to the creator position, which is, I'm empowered to be a leader. I'm empowered to make the changes in my life that I want. So that's that sort of shift. then the villain, you know, it's ultimately usually that we are, when we're in that victim mentality, we're identifying the villain, like a circumstance that we can't control, or a person who's done us wrong, and, you know, or we want to change. And that's the sort of mentality. It's all kind of very much interconnected and intertwined. And ultimately that hero, you know, they've got such best intentions, but it's, you know, really hard to break free of that. And I used to be playing that role, you know, always wanting to help everybody. But ultimately, it was what I've realized now after going on my coaching journey is that I was actually keeping people stuck because I wanted so badly to help them, and I got so much subconsciously from them needing me. I had to break through that because I realized I was keeping these people stuck, keeping my friends, my family members stuck by telling them what they wanted to hear and filling them up, rather than, hey, okay, I get it, I see you, I hear you, I understand you, I'm with you, let's break through. You know, it's a different shift, and it's a more empowered shift. But to answer your question, Belinda, it wasn't Belinda, it was Lisa, sorry. To answer your question there, Lisa, it is seriously hard to identify when you're playing those roles, but just sit with yourself and feel whether you feel empowered or you feel disempowered. That's where it begins. And once you can identify if you're feeling disempowered, start questioning yourself. What role do I feel, which category have I put myself in? The victim, the villain, or the hero? And just question yourself. And ultimately, if that's something that you'd like guidance with, that's what coaches are for, and I'd love to help you with that. So if you are struggling with that and you feel like this is a point that you want to break through with, then definitely book in a 15-minute power session with me, and I'll help you with that for sure. I'd love to. And hope that was helpful to you, Lisa. Let me know. And Hassan, thank you. And Joji, thank you so much, Joji. I appreciate having you here. Yes, we have to help and challenge. Yes, definitely, Hassan. You know, you've got to have, in order to be a healthy, rounded out individual, we need both. We need support and we need challenge. You know, support and challenge that is pushing us in the direction of our highest potential and the best parts of who we are. So you've got to have some balance there, and I thank you for your comments. What MLM business you try to approach us? No, I'm not in MLM at all. At all, Annette. But yeah, no MLM here, just me. And Ella Corey, thank you for joining. You're so welcome, Joji. And we have to make people love. Yeah, well, you know what? That can be a kind of disempowering mindset to have too. I totally agree, Hassan, that the more love we can have in the world, the better. That's our truth. That's our human nature. But ultimately, when we're trying to make other people love, we're not being loving. So the best way to inspire love from others is to be a leader in love. So love that. Thank you for your comments. Awesome. I'm grateful to hear that, Lisa, that you've identified that. And Joji, we can't expect others to change themselves so we can be happy. Yes, we can only change ourselves, our own internal condition, right? You got it. That's so spot on. You've got to be the leader. You've got to empower yourself, and you know, with the purposes of showing people what's possible. Be the role model, be the leader, and in turn, you'll ultimately inspire others to step up their game. So I love that, and that's the greatest gift I feel we can give to others, is to be an empowering role model of inspiration, so that we can inspire others to reach higher and higher levels of their potential, no matter whether that's your friends, family, the world, whatever. I think that's the greatest gift we can give people. So thank you so much. And yes, awesome to have you, Floyd. Thank you for joining. So guys, last questions or comments. That was my message today, to just identify with you, or just give you that sort of fresh perspective on the three categories that we tend to oversimplify the world and its people into, and our circumstances. So my wish is for you guys out there to use this message to feel more empowered, to be more self-aware, to start looking at what we're doing. You know, how are you showing up? And is it empowering, or are you disempowering yourself and others? And you know, those transitions to break through. So awesome. Thank you, Alec and Joji, to be a leader of love. Yeah, I think that's, you know, another great purpose to have in life is to be that leader of love. That is such a fulfilling role to fill, much more fulfilling than playing the victim or, you know, the disempowering hero. So I hope that's helped. And thank you so much for your comments and engagement. As always, guys, you know how much I appreciate you. I could spend the rest of the day just showing how much I appreciate you guys, because ultimately, you're giving me a platform to do what I love to do more than anything else. So I couldn't be doing what I do right now without you guys. So much love to you, and gratitude, and sending you all of my love, light, blessings, and heaps of positive energy to you in your world. And I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. Make sure that you, if you haven't already, jump on a 15-minute power session with me. I absolutely love getting to engage personally with each and every one of you if possible. So definitely do that. And if you have any feedback for me as to how I could be adding more value to your lives, how I could be improving these Facebook Lives for you, if you have any topics, questions, ideas for me, I'm here to make this better and better and better. So definitely let me know. And I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow.